welcome back. It's been like 2-3 weeks since Nationals or since Worlds. It's been like 6 weeks since Nationals.
Yeah, because it was, I think, 2 weeks in between or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How was your travel there?
Travel was surprisingly good this time. Like, we lucked out. I talked to a lot of people who got really, really shitty luck on their travel. I was really glad we didn't get the shuttle from Johannesburg to Sun City the night we landed, because from what I heard, it worked out to be like a 4.5 or 5 hour thing at night. And then we had the same experience going back after the competition where it was like 5 hours. There was an accident. We were just like sitting there for maybe an hour on the highway kind of thing. But yes, we traveled there. We spent a night, maybe 2 nights in Johannesburg. Just kind of hung out and then went out to Sun City. And it's like I don't know, it's a weird like 5 resort gated, like artificial, it just was weird vibes. I would have much rather just competed in Johannesburg or gone to Cape Town or something like that. I think would have been dope.
Yeah, it just seems like powerlifting meets are never in ideal places. Like more often it's in like a weird place than it is in
They're
like
usually close to really cool places,
Yeah.
which is good. But like, yeah, Killeen, Texas. Like, can we just do it in Austin?
Yeah.
But yeah, so travel was fine. We got there. The hotel like had its quirks. I think Selena used the hairdryer that was attached. It was like wired into the wall, but it was also stored in the drawer. So she used it, put it back in the drawer, and as she was closing it, it like let off this big spark and all of our outlets stopped working. And there were just like, I don't know, there were a lot of like weird things like that with the hotel, but we got there and everybody was there. It was good times, good vibes. It was really awesome to be able to go and watch lifting again, because in Sweden last year, it was still like COVID times, right? Like COVID was a bigger thing. There were more restrictions. And this year at Worlds, like you could go and spectate any day, anytime, whatever. So it was really cool. And I don't think I took advantage of it at all prior to competing, but even just after competing and having an audience when I competed, it was cool. Kind of like brought things back that I had missed with international meets and powerlifting.
I guess that leads into squats. Let's start with each lift chronologically.
Yeah.
So how did squats go?
Squats were probably the one thing I was most confident in and most comfortable with. Like I knew going in I was going to hit a PR. I was going to surpass my best squat, because squat had felt really good, really consistent. Like every session was coming in, it was feeling solid. My knee was really acting up. So there were some sessions that were a little bit limited by that, but even still, for the most part, I could squat and it wasn't affecting my squat. I'd be like limping a little bit afterwards, but I could squat. So I went in and I don't even remember my attempts anymore. I think I opened at like 290 something and then went to 307, 310.
I think it's 310.
And then took 317 for my third, which is 2.5 kilo PR. That was my first PR on the platform in 7 years. So.
First squat PR.
Squat PR, sorry, from my first squat PR, raw squat PR on the platform in 7 years. So that felt pretty good. I had a little emotional moment afterwards. Looking back at it, it's one of those things that's like, I probably had like 5 more there.
Definitely.
It felt tough, and as soon as we put in 317, I said to the coaches, that's the right call. That's exactly what I would have put on. That's what I would have asked for. That's what they decided. So we both, met eye and then watched it, and we were like, I guess there was a little bit more there left, like a little bit more left. But again, like it's a PR. I don't know. It's hard to tell sometimes, especially with my squat.
Yeah.
How it's going, how it's progressing, and that kind of stuff. But I was confident going in, and it went well, 3 for 3. I don't think I got any red lights for anything.
I don't think you might have. I don't know if you got on one side or not. I know there's one judge that was giving a lot of people red lights, but
there were a lot of weird random reds thrown out. But such is Worlds sometimes, I think.
Yeah, I would say your squat stance, even to me, looked narrower at Worlds. And you also squatted super deep compared to probably any other meet.
Really?
Yeah.
See, and it feels like I'm squatting almost borderline to me. And like with my squat, I basically figured out how to like use my gut and my quads together to like create this really stable bottom position. And for me, that narrower stance is just so much more comfortable and so much more reliable. For, I don't know, 3 weeks or so leading into the competition, I brought my stance in, really tried to focus on my knees tracking almost straight forward. And my squat was just like, oh, like this feels really good. No hip pain, none of that. Like, I feel like for a long time, one of the biggest things with my squat was a real kind of like nasty sticking point when it got heavy. Like I'd hit the bottom, I'd lose tension, and I'd like hit the sticking point and be like, ugh, and then have to kind of grind through it. And even in Sweden with that 315, it was that. But I feel like that's been kind of eliminated by bringing my stance in and some of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and then that moves us on to bench.
Yeah, bench. bench. So with, like I benched 175 at nationals, right? And it was almost hard, I think. I don't know. I think when you don't have any heavy weights in your hands, it's really hard to kind of read your capacity on the top end because you have no frame of reference for it. It just feels heavy. And that was kind of how that day went. So I went in with much bigger expectations than taking 175 for a third, thank God. So I opened at 175 and that felt good. It felt like an opener. In hindsight, it was probably way too light for an opener.
I think you opened at 170.
170.
170,
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, 170, 180.
Yeah.
Were the jumps. And those were what I had planned, or close to, actually. I think I had planned to jump like 182 or 185 on my second and then go 190 for a third. But we went 180 for the second, which I was fine with. I didn't know, again, how things were gonna be. For anybody who doesn't or hasn't kept up or doesn't know, I was dealing with some like really weird shoulder issues for about 5 or 6 weeks leading into nationals, and then they kind of persisted leading into worlds throughout that prep. So my bench training numbers and intensities were way down, which led to me not really having any idea where my upper end capacity was. So I took my 180 and it felt a little sticky. It felt a little hard. And coaches said, okay, let's go 187. And I thought, no, let's go 185. And then I took 185 and it moved better than the 180. Like I came off the platform, you can see me. As soon as I turn and I look at Jeff and I go, should have gone 187 or should have gone 87. And you can very clearly see it. And I look very exasperated afterwards. And Selena was like, oh, were you like mad at the handoff guy? Or like, what was up? I had a few people ask like what I was so emotive about after. And it was because I should have taken a bigger jump on my bench. Yeah, so it was good in the sense that like I feel like my bench capacity is back. I'll be able to train it now. I'll be able to move forward and, you know, probably hit some PRs and have good bench training. Things feel healthy. Things feel like they're moving well. So yeah, in that sense, it's exciting moving forward. It's just kind of a bummer because, you know, if I had taken that extra 5 on the squat, if I had taken that extra 2.5 to 5 on the deadlift or on the bench press, then maybe, you know, things would have turned out a little bit differently. But
yeah, you could have gone less on the deadlifts.
Yeah, hindsight's always 20/20, right?
Which is what
shoulda, coulda, woulda.
We're getting into now.
I don't think I had a good deadlift session for 3 months leading into Worlds. I don't think I had a single session where my deadlift felt good or where it felt like my technique, like I felt comfortable and mechanical with it. I think every time I deadlifted, it felt awkward. It felt like I couldn't get into a good position. It just wasn't clicking at all. And I'm not sure exactly, you know, why that might have been. I don't know. But on the day, it felt like my deadlift. Warm-ups felt okay, whatever. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes, but I went out and I took my opener at 355, I think, 360 maybe.
I think it was in the 350s. Could have been like 357.
Yeah. Anyways, somewhere in there. Took that and it felt great. It was like, oh, okay, we're here. Like the deadlift is gonna happen today. I think because I didn't really have any good sessions, I didn't really get much weight on the bar. I didn't really have great training outcomes, and I wasn't super strong with my deadlift that day. I pulled, 372 for my second? Yeah, and it was like a little sticky at lockout. It was a little hard, definitely harder than I would have wanted it to be, but I don't know, whatever. And then because, and again, I'm not entirely even clear what happened with the third attempts, because I know there were a number of changes, and then it got to the end, and basically they were trying to make it like as fair as possible between the two Canadians, because we had our coaching staff coaching two of us against each other in relatively close contention. So they put in, I think, what I would have needed if Eric made his, as opposed to saving a change, and if Eric missed, bringing mine down. But by the time Eric missed, my two changes, I believe, had already been used. So I was forced to take the 390 as opposed to dropping to like 388 or something, whatever it would have been to tie Carl on body weight. I think I would have taken him on body weight, but
yeah.
So ended up with 390 for my third, and it just wasn't even really that close.
Yeah.
It wasn't glued to the floor. Thankfully, it wasn't a 2018 thing again where it was like, oh, oof.
Yeah.
You know, I got it to my knee. I just lost a ton of position off the floor and was just like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Just hit a wall. So again, the fact that I had good deadlifts on the day gives me hope coming forward, like moving forward out of this and thinking like, oh shit, okay, maybe we can get some good deadlift training in now, right? Like one of the things I changed leading into Worlds was I ramped up my frequency in a lot of things, because that's something that's worked pretty well for me in the past. And I think it worked wonders on my squat. It was good on my bench, although my bench was hard to tell where the hell it was at all. And I don't think it worked on my deadlift. I think that was maybe one of the reasons I had poor deadlift performances, and then taking like a nice big taper, my deadlift felt like my deadlift again. So I think one of the things I need to do is pull that frequency back on the deadlift, keep it nice and high on the squat, and keep going with the bench, because I think we were having some really good bench training before my shoulder acted up on me.
Yeah.
So at this point, it's one of those things where like, yeah, it's pretty shitty to go out there nominated third thinking, you know, I'm going to be in contention for third or better. And then just have that kind of a day where it's like you're just scraping together what you can, and then you go from third nomination to sixth place. So that sucks, and like I'm not super happy about that. But on the flip side, and I think these are the things you have to tell yourself sometimes, is like I come out of this with not only a squat PR, but a lot of confidence to continue that squat moving, you know, in a good direction. I come out of this with knowing that my bench is pretty much back and trainable, and that presumably we can get it back to where it was and continue to push that. And that my deadlift felt good for the first time in a while, and maybe we figured out some things with training and how to handle the deadlift moving forward so that I can continue to push that world record. So really sort of good perspective moving forward. Unfortunate the way it turned out. I had so many, there were so many good competitors. That's the big thing, right? If it was a less deep field, I could have had an off day like that and still maybe, you know, had a decent placing. But when it's that tight and the competitors are that good, even from the B group, like there were guys from I think the fourth place, I think was from the B group. And it's like, the class is just so stacked. You can't have an off day. And I did. And, you know, that's why I came sixth and Eric came ninth, and we were nominated like second and third. So it's just, sometimes that's the way she goes.
I think the one other thing is like, what's after Worlds now? Like, what's next?
So again, I'm really excited about what's next, because I plan to go to New Zealand for Commonwealths. And I had talked a lot previously about getting back into equipment for this competition, but then I had the day that I had and the training that I had leading up to Worlds, and it just leaves you with a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, like you got something to prove. And to be honest, that's kind of how I feel, right? I feel like I have so much more than that total that I put up, you know? I feel like I've got 920 or 930 in me if I can put together good training, and that's what I want to do. I want to go compete at Commonwealths I'll probably compete like December 1st. Looking at the schedule, that'll be towards the end of the competition. So I want to just put together some really good training, go out there and just like blow that total away, hit some PRs, push the world record, and yeah, hopefully like set a good pace and some momentum heading into nationals and worlds next year. Because again, yeah, I just feel like I got something to prove, and maybe that's what keeps me going through all this. But yeah,
Sweet. Stoked
for Commonwealths for sure.
All right. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us at Dylan's Question Hour, the 2020 of powerlifting. And yeah, I don't know. Peace.